Welcome, sixth graders. We're ready to start taking notes for the first time in Mr. Olsen's class. And it's going to be done a little bit different than maybe you've been used to in the past. You're watching this video, obviously, and you're taking notes at home. I'm going to try to walk through this step by step with you so you know exactly how I would like you to take your notes. So if you're ready and you have your notebook in front of you with your writing utensil, let's get started. This is Chapter 1, called The Earliest Human Societies. And it's Section 1, Studying History and Early Humans. So what you're going to do with this first page of notes is you're going to put the chapter title at the top. So let's get that fixed up first. Okay, so we're going to put the title of the chapter at the top of the page. So let me move this down here. Shrink this down. Top chapter title right there at the top. A little bit smaller there. So, and don't go past the red line there. So you're putting chapter at the top. Then you're going to take the section heading and you're going to put that right below it at the top. So you see the chapter. Here, let me get my pointer. The chapter's right here. Section title is right there. Now, in the future, when we do another section within chapter 1, you won't have to write chapter 1 at the top again. You've already done it once. That's plenty. Then you would just put the section titles at the top. Now, what you see at the top here, with the right up here where you see my highlighter, that is going to be the topic we're going to be talking about at the present. So the topic is called Understanding the Past. Now, in order for you to take a social studies class with Mr. Olsen, or any social studies class that you'll have or have had, it's about history. And in order to have history, we have to have past events to have occurred. And in order to know anything about those past events, you have to have a certain group of people called historians who study those events and let us know about them. So historians are important people. They question, they study, and they analyze the past. Okay, so how are we going to put this in your notes? So we're going to take this topic here and we're going to move it. We're going to move it down to our handy-dandy notebook page. Okay, let's shrink that down. So that'll be the first line available. You're going to put this this topic. Sorry, this is kind of wobbly here. Past, get that shrunk down. There we go. Okay, so understand the past will be on the first line. Then we will move this. Let's change colors. Okay, so let's move this down. We'll shrink it down and move it down there. So basically what we're going to do here is make bullet points. So your first line there, historians question, study, and analyze the past. That's a bullet point. But here's what I want you to do when you take notes. Always write down the topic heading. Because if, for say, you're taking a quiz and you're looking for something about historians and you know it's under the section called Understanding the Past, if you have the title there, you know where to find it. If you leave that title off, your notes will tend to get a little confusing. So always make sure you put the topic heading. Once you put the topic heading, you don't have to write it anymore. So Understanding the Past is the topic heading, and then you start writing bullet points. Historians question, study, and analyze the past. That would be your first bullet point. Two definitions I want you to write down. The first one is called prehistory. Prehistory is the time before anything was written down. The key word there is written. If there was nothing written, that would be prehistory. Now, how do we know anything about prehistory? Well, historians try to take their best educated guess as to what happened. They use artifacts to help them figure out what possibly could have happened in that part of time. Second definition is called history. History is a record of events that have happened in the past and are written down. Now, let's get this in our notes. So let's take this first line and we're going to shrink that down. It goes right below the first bullet point you made. Then we'll take the next line. Okay, let's move that down here. Okay, so what you see in our notes, and this is what you should have written in your notes, is 3 bullet points so far under the topic of understanding the past. Historians question and study and analyze the past. Prehistory is a time before anything was written down. History is a record of events that have happened in the past and are written down. Those are the 3 bullet points you should have. All right, so when it comes to knowing anything about history, historians use certain things to help them tell the story, if you will. One of those ways is through using something called a primary source. A primary source is something that is written by a person who eyewitnessed a historical event. So let's say I saw the old St. Louis Arena being torn down. I was an eyewitness to that event. That way I could be a primary source because I'm telling you that I saw the building blow up and fall to the ground, and that's a historical event. Some other examples of that would be letters, diaries like you see here, paintings and artifacts right here. This is a diary right here, letters, autobiographies. Those are all primary sources because those are people who eyewitness event and wrote down the information. So let's get this to our notes. Okay, so primary source, we'll shrink that down. We'll go right on the line right below history. Okay, then we got the examples here. All right, let's move this down to the next line. There you go. So your notes should look something similar to what you see right here on the screen. So you should have 5 bullet points so far under understanding the past. The next type of source that historians use to tell us about history is a secondary source. A secondary source is a work produced by someone who was not actually there. They're getting it secondhand, if you will. Your examples here would be your textbook that you just were issued. That's an example of a secondary source because the authors of this textbook weren't living back in 400 BC to tell us anything about, ancient Greece. A biography is a secondary source because a biography is not written actually by the person who eyewitnessed the event. And replica artifacts would be something of a secondary source as well. All right, so let's put this on our notes. Okay, secondary source. Move that to the front. All right, shrink that down. Okay, let's move examples down. There you go. So now you should have 7 bullet points under the little subtopic here of understanding the past. Now we're moving on to another subtopic. The new title is called Early Humans Were Hunter-Gatherers. So let's talk about that for a second. Keyword there is hunter-gatherers. Hunter-gatherers were people who hunted animals and gathered plants for food. Now these people were considered nomads. Now let's look at that right here. That's the word right there, nomads. Nomads were people who just moved from place to place. They didn't have a settled home. They didn't have a house like you have that you go home to after school and you eat and sleep and all the other stuff you do at home. They wandered around. They wandered around looking for food. They hunted animals. They gathered plants. Now, if let's say they're hunters and all the deer, let's say, have run off because they were afraid of getting killed, then those nomadic people would follow those animals. Or let's say they've gathered up all the berries from a certain place, there's no more left, then they have to move until they find some new areas where they can get more food. So these hunter-gatherers are nomadic. Nomads move from place to place. As you can see, I put the title of the new heading, subheading I should say. Early Humans Were Hunter-Gatherers. I don't know what happened to Hunter, but it should be there. Now we'll move our topic here, down here to the first line. Then we'll put the next line right below it. And finally, our last one right here, right below it. So you can see you got 3 bullet points under the new subtopic of Early Humans Were Hunter-Gatherers. Now at this point, I'm out of space on my page. You, if you would run out of space on your page, would go to the next page and just keep writing. I am not going to be showing you any more examples of that. I will help guide you along a little bit, but you won't see the example shown on the screen at this point. Hunter-gatherers live together in small bands made up of several families. Now, I'm not talking about a band who has a guitar and a drum and a keyboard and they're rocking out. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Bands are just small groups of people. Okay, and they were made up of several families. And like I said, they wandered around from place to place. These nomadic people moved from place to place, which is called migration. So when you move from one place to another, you're migrating. If you watch birds in the wintertime, they start to head south most of the time. That's migration. If you have ever moved from one house to another, you've migrated to another place. So these people just move along with their food. Now, these are 2 bullet points that you should put under the last 3 that you just wrote down. Here is the 3rd subtitle that you should have written down. Right up here at the top, developing tools and culture. That's the next topic. That's what you should write down next. And the first bullet point under developing tools and culture is this right here. So technology consists of the ways in which people apply knowledge, tools, and inventions to meet their needs. Now, of course, today when you hear the word technology, you think of computers or iPads or smart boards or your whatever device you have. That's technology. But technology was even around back in the prehistoric BC days. Now, of course, technology back then would have consisted of making a weapon, like you see right here. A weapon that could be used as a tool to help them hunt or, gather food. The wheel is technology because it's helping them meet their needs. So this is all technology back in prehistoric days. Keeping with the idea of technology, over 2 million years ago, the earliest people made stone tools for cutting. That's technology. So if you see like in this funny little picture right here of the caveman, he's using a stone to do some work. That's technology. Another thing, fire. That is technology, believe it or not. People learned how to make and control fire around 500,000 years ago. Now, I'm looking at my little diagram, which is not quite working the way I thought it might. But the lightning bolt, they, struck something and caught the tree or wood on fire. So those early people looked at that, maybe a little scared. Ooh, fire. They probably tried to touch it. Youch! Burn their hands. But then they learned how to control it. So they may have gotten a stick, got some fire, and lit something else, tried to keep it going until they could figure out how to start the fire themselves. But they used an electric, the bolt here, as kind of their guide to help them figure out how to do that. Other forms of technology. Language. The words you speak is a form of technology. So human language developed as a result of the need for humans to work together. Obviously, before there was any kind of spoken language, you hear a lot of, grunting noises. But eventually, they were able to form sounds to develop a kind of language so that everyone understood what they're talking about. Religion is another form of technology. It was developed. They honored gods and spirits of lots of different things. The god of the rock, the god of the animal, the god of the berry plant, whatever. That was an early form of religion. Early art gave us insights into humans' daily lives and beliefs. Again, technology. Looking at the picture here, this tells a story. That's what, this story is about how these early people were hunting and gathering their things. Pictures were drawn on cave walls to honor the spirits of animals killed for food. So when you see like this deer on the wall, it's obviously drawn there to show some kind of honor to that animal. It gave those humans life. Okay, so under that last topic of technology, you should have had 7 bullet points. Now we're moving on to the 4th and final subtopic of this section, and it's called the beginning of agriculture. So So you can see right up here, that's the new subtitle that you should have written in your notes. And 2 bullet points will follow that one on this slide. Humans began to domesticate, which means to tame, plants and animals around 9,000 BC. Now you might ask yourself, how do you tame a plant? Well, when you tame a plant, that means you start to control it. You start to grow it. And that means that you don't have to leave the area once you ate all the plants with the successful berries on it. So now when you tame a plant, you can control it and you can use it for your own benefit. Same with animals. You can capture an animal and use that animal to help you survive. For example, instead of just capturing the animal and killing it to eat it, you might keep it so that it can, maybe produce milk if you have that kind of an animal, or do other things for you, like maybe plow some ground so you can plant a seed. So that's what domesticating a plant or animal means. This means that you have a reliable food source. It doesn't go away. If you know how to domesticate those things, it keeps those things with you the whole time. The last 2 bullet points, people probably got the idea of agriculture, which means planting seeds to raise crops, from spilled seeds. They may have had some seeds, they dropped on the ground, then realized they start to grow. And that's how they got the idea that, hey, we can plant something here and maybe keep it and eat it for a while. People began to settle in one place. They didn't have to wander around anymore looking for their food. And because they were able to settle in one place, populations grew. That means more kids were being born and they could stay in one place. Prior to that, people weren't really interested in that. All they were thinking about is surviving, finding food. Now that they could stay in one place, those populations will start to increase. And you will start to see the beginnings of communities. That's the end of our notes. Hope you did okay. And we'll talk about it in class tomorrow.